It happened just after sunrise, when the sleepy quiet of Mercer General Hospital was usually broken only by the slow shuffle of the night staff heading home and the buzz of early shift nurses arriving with coffee cups in hand. The sky outside was still painted in soft pink and gold when the automatic glass doors at the hospital's front entrance slid open. At first, nobody noticed him. A few people walked by, too caught up in their routines to glance down. But then came the sound. Something, sharp and echoing, the clack of claws on the linoleum floor. A low murmur followed. Then a voice, confused and slightly alarmed, called out, "There's a dog. Inside the hospital?" Heads turned. Footsteps halted. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. A stray dog, thin, ragged, with patches of sandy fur clinging stubbornly to his narrow frame, stood in the lobby. He didn't bark or growl. He didn't wag his tail or look around. He just stood there, breathing heavily, something dangling from his mouth. At first glance, it looked like a black trash bag, dirty, torn in places. But it moved, just slightly. A twitch, a rustle, enough to make one of the nurses drop her clipboard in shock. Security was called. A receptionist panicked, pressing buttons on her phone with shaking fingers. Someone yelled to, "Get that thing out!" But before anyone could move, one nurse, a young woman with kind eyes and a steady voice, took a step closer. "Wait," she whispered, more to herself than anyone else. "Something's inside." Her name was Erin Walker, 27 years, old, still new enough to the job that she hadn't lost the habit of seeing what others didn't. She crouched slowly, trying not to scare the animal, and looked closer. The bag wasn't just dirty. It was wet at the bottom, dark around the edges, and from inside it came a faint, choking sound. The dog, eyes tired but focused, placed the bag down gently. He didn't flinch or run when Erin inched forward. He simply stood there, breathing hard, and watched. Erin pulled the torn plastic apart with trembling fingers and then gasped. Inside was a baby, not a doll, not a trick, a real, living, breathing, barely breathing, newborn, blue lips, skin cold to the touch, eyes shut tight, face slightly turned to one side. Everything moved fast after that. Alarms, doctors running, the crash team bursting through swinging doors. The baby was rushed to the neonatal unit. Someone brought in a heated blanket. Someone else checked vitals. It all became a blur. But even as the professionals swarmed in, as the baby was lifted, away and the bag discarded into a bin, Erin's eyes stayed locked on the dog. He hadn't moved. He was still there. Sitting now. Watching. Not the way a hungry stray might watch people eat. Not the way a scared animal might freeze. But with purpose. Like he knew exactly what he'd done. 3 hours earlier, before any of this, the dog had been lying under a rusted bench near an alleyway behind a bakery 2 blocks from the river. His name, though no one had used it in years, was Toby. He wasn't much to look at, scarred from old fights. One ear folded oddly from a healed injury. His right paw slightly bent, giving him a limp when he walked. He hadn't always been like this. There was a time long ago when he wore a red collar and chased bouncing balls in grassy backyards. But that life had disappeared one winter when his owner never came back from a long car ride. Since then, Toby had lived day by day. He was good at finding scraps. The bakery trash always had bits of dry bread, sometimes a muffin if he got there, early. But that morning, something strange caught his attention. Behind the dumpster, near some broken-down boxes and tossed crates, was a shape, black plastic, torn on one side. It didn't smell like old food. It didn't reek like rot or waste. It smelled faintly human. And then it moved. Toby stepped closer, sniffed, nudged the side with his nose. Something inside whimpered, a sound, so soft, so fragile that even the birds went quiet. He didn't understand what it was, not fully, but something in him, a memory, a feeling, stirred awake. He tried to paw it open, but the bag was too tight. He bit gently at one corner and managed to tear a small opening. That's when he saw the baby's face. Eyes closed. Body shivering. No one else was there. No voices. No footsteps. Toby looked toward the street. Then back to the baby. Then, with more care than anyone would have expected from a stray, he clamped the plastic in his teeth and began to walk. The bag was heavy, his legs ached, but he didn't stop. People on the sidewalk saw him pass, but no one paid attention. Just another stray dragging junk around. The only place he remembered that always had people, the one place he had ever seen kindness, was the big white building at the end of Elm Street, the hospital. And that's how he arrived there. That's how chaos began. And that's how everything changed. By the time the baby was stabilized, hours had passed. The doctors said it had been minutes, away from dying. If it had stayed in that alley alone in the cold, the news spread quickly. A stray dog saves a newborn. The local paper called it a miracle with 4 legs. The hospital staff gave Toby scraps of ham and turkey from the break room. A volunteer bathed him. Aaron brought him a blanket. No one could say where the baby had come from. No security cameras in the alley, no witnesses. Police opened a case, but leads were thin. Toby didn't care about any of that. He just waited outside the NICU door every day. And Aaron couldn't forget his eyes. She came to visit him after every shift. Eventually, she brought a leash. He didn't resist. When she opened the back seat of her old Honda and patted the cushion, he climbed in without hesitation. It was quiet on the drive home, a kind of quiet that felt like something settling into place. But the story doesn't end there, not even close. Because while the city buzzed about the heroic stray, someone else was watching the news, someone who had placed that black garbage bag behind the bakery, and they were not happy it had been found, not happy at all. The next part of this story begins with a knock at Aaron's door. A soft knock, polite. Almost too polite. Toby was asleep on the rug when he heard it. His ears perked, his body stiffened. He rose slowly and walked to the door, sniffing the air. Something was off. Aaron glanced out the window, but saw no one. Then, the knock came again. And this time, it wasn't soft. Toby stood still, muscles tight, eyes fixed on the door. The second knock wasn't loud, but it had a certain coldness to it. Sharp, deliberate, like someone making sure they were noticed but not seen. Aaron peeked through the curtain again. Still no one, but something in her chest tightened. Toby let out a low, quiet growl, not aggressive, just alert. Aaron hesitated, then slowly opened the door, her hand gripping the edge tightly. No one was there. Just the empty porch, quiet street, and a wind that whispered through the branches of the maple trees. But something had changed. She stepped out, glanced down the walkway, then toward the mailbox. That's when she saw it. A plain white envelope tucked beneath her doormat. No return address, no name, just one word on the front in shaky, hurried handwriting. Sorry. Her fingers trembled as she opened it. Inside, a single sheet of paper. No message, no explanation. Just a printed photo. Grainy, slightly out of focus, but unmistakable. It was a picture of her, taken from behind. She was in the hospital, crouched, next to Toby on the day the baby was found. Someone had been watching. That night, Aaron didn't sleep. She sat up on the couch with a mug of cold tea, Toby lying quietly at her feet. Every time a car passed outside, she peeked through the blinds. The baby had been in foster care since the incident, still unnamed, still recovering. Aaron had visited twice. Quiet visits where she simply watched through the glass as the tiny child kicked her legs and reached out toward nothing. She'd thought of adopting her. The idea had crept into her mind slowly, gently, not out of pity. Not because it made for a heroic story, but because when she looked at that baby, something inside her ached with the kind of love that didn't ask permission. But now, with this note, this photograph, it was clear someone wasn't ready to let the past stay buried. Detective Malik was assigned to the case from the beginning. Calm and methodical, he'd seen cases like this before. though very few ended with a stray dog saving a life. When Aaron brought him the envelope the next morning, he listened carefully, eyes scanning the photo. "This wasn't someone passing by," he said, placing the picture into a folder. "This is personal. Planned." "Do you think they'll come back?" Aaron asked. Malik didn't answer right away. "They already have." Meanwhile, Toby stayed close to her side. He had never been the kind of dog to attach himself easily. But with Aaron, something had changed. He didn't flinch at her voice. He didn't retreat from her touch. He waited by the door when she went out and followed her to the mailbox every morning. As if he knew the danger wasn't gone, the hospital was quieter these days. The press attention had faded, the miracle story buried beneath newer headlines. But for Aaron, the weight hadn't lifted. Every time she scrubbed in, every time she passed the NICU, she felt it. The unanswered questions, the quiet tension like a thread pulled too tight. And then something unexpected happened. The baby, now named Hope by her foster nurse, began to respond. She smiled when Aaron entered the room. Her hands reached out toward her. Her tiny mouth formed soft, delighted sounds. Aaron couldn't help it. She started coming more often, staying longer. But as her connection to the baby deepened, the shadows around her life grew. It started with phone calls, silent, just breathing on the other end. Then her car alarm went off in the middle of the night, but nothing was missing. A window left open she swore she had shut. A faint mark on the door, like someone had been there with keys but never used them. Toby became more protective. He started, sleeping by the door. One night he woke Aaron with a bark, deep, sharp, urgent. She rushed out and found her porch light unscrewed, left dangling by a thread. She called Malik again. He came over the next morning, his brow furrowed with concern. "They're watching you," he said, "and they're trying to scare you." "But why?" Aaron whispered. "Why now? The baby is safe. They left her there to die. Why would they care?" Malik looked at her and his voice lowered. "Sometimes people don't want their secrets uncovered. If we find out who the baby is, we might find out who they are. And if that person has something to lose, they won't stop." Weeks passed. Aaron took time off work, unable to focus. She couldn't leave the baby or Toby. Every day she visited the foster center. Hope's health improved. She gained weight, began to laugh, to hold on to Aaron's finger with fierce determination. But then one morning Aaron arrived and found the crib empty. The nurse on duty looked startled. "She's not here," the woman said. A man came. He had paperwork, said he was the biological father. Aaron's heart dropped. "What man?" "No one said anything. No one called me." "I'm sorry," the nurse whispered. "We didn't know. It looked official. The paperwork was real. But something didn't feel right." Malik confirmed it hours later. The signature on the form didn't match the name on file. The ID was fake. Hope had been taken. Panic set in. Every second felt like a weight pressing down on Aaron's chest. Toby sensed the change. He stayed by, her side constantly, his ears alert, his movements tense. Malik launched an investigation, but there were no immediate leads, no security footage that captured the man's face clearly. No witnesses. Aaron broke down in her car that night. "I should have taken her home," she whispered into her hands. "I should have protected her." Toby rested his head in her lap, and then something happened. 2 nights later, a second envelope appeared. No knock, no warning. Just the envelope placed under the windshield wiper of Aaron's car. Inside was a photo. Hope, asleep in a crib. Alive. A note was scribbled on the back. "She's safe, for now." Aaron drove straight to Malik. He stared at the image for a long time. "This is a message," he said quietly. "They're not just threatening you. They want something. Or they want to punish you. Either way, it means they're not done." That night, Aaron couldn't sleep again. She sat by the window, Toby at her side, her eyes scanning the darkness for movement. She didn't know how far they'd go. She didn't know what they wanted. But she knew one thing. She would not give up on hope. She had already been abandoned once, thrown away like trash, saved only by the unlikely love of a dog who hadn't been shown kindness in years. And now, she was missing again. The one person who had no voice, no strength, no say in her own fate. But this time, she wasn't alone. Because Toby remembered the scent, and Toby never forgot. As Erin stared into the night, the phone on her table buzzed. A text. No number, just one sentence. Come alone, no cops. Tomorrow, 11 p.m. The alley behind the bakery. She read it once, then again, and slowly she reached down, running her hand through Toby's fur. I need you again, she whispered. Toby looked up, and the story took a turn into the dark. The night air was heavy, still, and thick with the scent of something old, like damp newspapers and rusted metal. Erin stood near the corner of the alley behind the bakery, the same one where it had all started. She clutched her coat tighter around her, heart thudding louder than her footsteps. Beside her, Toby stayed alert, his ears perked, body tense, tail low. The street lamps barely reached this part of the city, casting long shadows that twisted like fingers on the brick walls. Her phone buzzed again. No words this time. Just a photo. Hope. Eyes closed, a faint glow of a lamp behind her. She was alive. Erin inhaled sharply and swallowed her fear. She had no weapons, no backup. Only Toby, her instinct and the unshakable bond that had formed between her and the child she hadn't even birthed, but had come to love like her own. Then came the footsteps. A man stepped out from the far end of the alley, half hidden in shadow. Tall, hooded. He didn't speak at first, just looked at Erin with an unreadable expression. You came alone, he said finally, his voice low and steady. You have her, Erin replied, her voice breaking slightly. I want her back. She was never yours. Erin's jaw tightened. Then why didn't you want her? Why leave her in a trash bag? The man didn't answer immediately. He stepped closer, and under the flickering alley light, Erin could make out his face. Young, mid-20s, sunken eyes, worn features. Not a monster, just broken, but dangerous all the same. I didn't know what to do, he muttered. I didn't want her. Her mother left. I thought, if I just left her somewhere, someone would find her. But then you came. And then the story started. News, police, questions. I didn't expect it to get this big. I thought it would disappear. You almost killed her, Erin said, her voice trembling. But Toby saved her. And now you're dragging her back into this? I didn't plan to, the man muttered. But they found out. People who shouldn't have known. Someone offered money to keep quiet or to get her back. I didn't even know who they were. Erin stepped forward, her voice soft but firm. You can fix this, give her back, let her have a real life, let her be safe. The man looked down at Toby, who hadn't moved, but whose eyes hadn't blinked once. Then he exhaled sharply, shoulders sagging. She's in the van around the corner, he whispered. Safe. I didn't hurt her, I swear. Without waiting, Erin ran past him, her footsteps echoing in the stillness. The van was parked at the curb, engine off, windows fogged. She yanked the side door open, heart in her throat. There she was. Hope lay wrapped in a soft blanket, her tiny hands curled beneath her chin. She stirred, blinking up at Erin with sleepy eyes. Relief hit like a wave. Erin scooped her into her arms, tears falling freely. Behind her, Toby stood by the van door, watching the man who had followed silently. I'm sorry, he whispered again. I didn't know how to be a father. No one does, Erin said quietly. But running away was never the answer. The police arrived minutes later. Malik had traced the anonymous texts, arriving just as Erin was settling Hope into her arms. The man didn't resist. He sat on the curb, hands folded, silent. Back at the hospital, Hope was checked thoroughly, healthy, unharmed. Later that week, the court approved Erin's emergency guardianship request. The story made the rounds again, but this time it wasn't about a stray dog carrying a garbage bag. It was about a dog that saved a life, and a woman who refused to give up. The day Erin brought Hope home for good, she placed her gently in a crib beside the living room window. Toby lay nearby, eyes half closed, tail thumping softly. Hope reached out and grabbed his ear, and he didn't even flinch. Life slowly returned to something normal. No more strange envelopes. No more shadows at the door. Just quiet mornings, afternoon walks, and long evenings filled with laughter and the sound of small feet against the floor. Hope would never remember the night she was abandoned. She would never know the full story of what led to it. But Erin would remember every detail, every fear, every miracle, and every heartbeat of the stray dog who carried Hope in a black garbage bag. Sometimes the people we think are forgotten end up becoming heroes. Sometimes the ones we overlook are the ones who save us. Toby had no words, no past he could explain, but he had heart. And in the end, that was enough. As Erin watched Hope sleep beside Toby, she whispered, "Thank you, boy. You gave her life, and you gave me one too." Outside, the wind moved gently through the trees. The world for once was quiet, and they were finally home.